Are we good to go now?
We are.
Is Wes on? Yeah, he is.
Yep, I'm here.
That handsome guy.
Why?
He never
Thank you.
changes.
Okay, I will call the Village of Victor Board of Trustees meeting for December 7th, 2020 to order. And before we start, I neglected last time, in fact, most times, to welcome the public if they're live with us on YouTube tonight. And would like to remind them they can use the chat feature to send comments in. And we would be happy to answer questions or comments at a later date, unless we can do that easily right here tonight. So welcome if the public's out there, and we hope somebody is. And then one other thing, we're going to rise to do the pledge to the flag. Mike Crowley leads us through that, and we kind of sound like a group of a church choir that's not in unison. So let's just let Mike say the pledge for us, and we rise and honor the flag at the same time while he speaks it, because otherwise our feedback causes all kinds of issues. So let's rise to pledge the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Mike. That was excellent. Okay, first on our agenda is my own part one report regarding chapter 50 and chapter 170 and the code changes that we've been discussing. And we have Babette and Wes here tonight.
Was Meg going to be here?
Meg is not going to be with us tonight. She had another commitment, I think, tonight. So we have some comments from you, Babette.
Right.
And if you'd like to start with those.
Okay. Well, if you have the chapter 50 in front of you, I think Wes and I both kept in 50-1 and 50-2A. And also he changed the definition, or changed the wording in 52C to present structures and landmarks. He changed it to historic resources. Article 1, the 50-3, the definitions Wes took out. So I think you may want to chat about that. Pretty much everything I agree with, except I'm going to go to the very last piece of my memo, which is Article 2, 50-13 to 50-19. It's the Village Center and the South Side Business District Site Organization, like building placement, street organization, things like that. I didn't see that in chapter 170. So that's really my only question for Wes and for the board tonight is where that would be put. Or if it is in 170, where is it? Because I didn't see it. Or if it's somewhere else in the code.
That's a great comment. I'm glad you brought that up. There is a big chunk of 50-13 through 50-18 that is in the new chapter 170, but there have been some items that were excluded. So for example, if we take a look at chapter 50-13, entitled, or section 50-13, I should say, entitled Village Center Business, Southside Business District Site Organization. Paragraphs A and B were eliminated entirely from chapter 170. So we didn't bring over paragraphs A and B of section 50-13. And there's the rationale behind that is that with site plan review in general, the reviewing board will look at the arrangement and configuration of improvements on a parcel of land and not necessarily, you know, a municipality's right of way or public way. So there are some elements in here that discuss in paragraphs A and B that discuss, you know, the width of travel lanes and bike lanes and total roadway width, granite curbing, that sort of thing. So they're generally, we might find, a municipality might find these types of standards in their design regulations or design and construction standards. And let's see, the other thing under paragraph A with 50-13, maximum 2 feet from right of way and property line. Building may be perpendicular to sidewalk to allow parking at the side. Those are also things that can be managed through chapter 170. But if we go to, for example, 50-13 paragraph C, that's where it starts with off-street parking, and paragraphs, well, I guess it's just paragraph C and all the subparagraphs, 1, 2, and 3. Those are in the chapter 170, and they can be found in chapter or section 170-27.
Perfect.
And then the same with section, if we look at section 50-14, the Village Center Business and Southside Business District Site Design, that the screening paragraph A, B is reserved. Paragraphs A, B, and C are all in chapters, are all in section or chapter 170. So the majority of what you find in those sections that you referenced, they did convert, or they were brought over to chapters 170. The organization is a little bit different, but it's very similar. And if it's helpful, what I could do is I could provide kind of a color-coded document of the two sections of code so that you can see what was brought over from chapter 50 into 170. And then that way it would be easily identifiable for the village board and any employees to see what didn't come over in that last code change.
But Wes, the definitions though didn't come over, right?
That's correct. The definitions did not come over from, yeah, when you referenced section 50-3.
Right.
Correct. The definitions did not come over.
Before we go back to the definitions, Wes, we're talking about 50-14, A, B, and C, and it's included pretty much in the chapter 170. What about the rest of that 50-14?
So 50-14, let's see, paragraphs A. Where am I? A, B, C, paragraph D, paragraph E, and all their subparagraphs, paragraph F, paragraph G and H, those were all brought over to chapter 170.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I really like your idea of a color-coded document that if you can do that without too much trouble.
Yeah, that's pretty easy to do.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
And now you're talking, Babette, about the definitions, and I know your comment was maybe we should reconsider taking them out.
At least the Architectural Preservation Board, because at this point, you don't have anything else referenced in your document about it. If you decide to put in an historic preservation law and a district and or a historic district, then that would come into play. But right now, you don't have anything that would come into for any use of it.
So, okay, so what you're saying is if we go to the next steps to establish a district, and whatever else we would need to do, we would want that definition. We would want an
Yep.
Architectural Preservation Review Board.
But I think that would be in that section of the code. It would define it in that section I think.
In what section?
If you were going to do a historic district, you'd have a specific code for that. So then the preservation board would be defined as part of that code.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's kind of like we already have that, which is chapter 50, but we never went the step of creating the district.
Correct.
To me, I mean, that would require a lot of board discussion and input from yourself and whoever we could get our hands on about whether or not we really want to create a historic district and historic district. Because I know
Right.
there are pros and cons to doing so. But for the present, as far as the way Wes has described what's included from 50 in 170, does anybody on the board feel we need to keep this definition in and keep it as it is stated here, that the planning board is actually serving as a Architectural Preservation Review Board? I mean, by folding the two chapters together, I don't know if we really need the definition. I think that's what you're saying, right, Wes?
The definition of Architectural Preservation Review Board.
Yeah.
I guess, no, I don't. So based on the way the code is written now and not having that historic preservation chapter, I don't think you need the Architectural Preservation Review Board definition. However, just because if it happens to get omitted or deleted from the code, it doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't the possibility to recreate that definition or reuse this definition once a historic preservation chapter, if the village board decides to create something like that, to reuse this definition. I suppose alternatively, you could include this definition of Architectural Preservation Review Board within chapter 170 with all of the other zoning definitions that are in there. And it's just likely, I don't think there's anything in the zoning chapter, however, that would mention the Architectural Preservation Review Board, because we I think the idea was to not have them be part of the site plan review process. So it would be a definition in your zoning, but there's probably maybe there's no other reference to it in the village code. Or if there is, then there it is. You have your definition.
Does anybody else on the board have a comment about this?
It makes sense to me what Babette said, that if we do eventually create an historic district, then that's when you bring the Architectural Preservation Review Board back, and it may not be just the planning board. You may, recreate it in a little different way, have different people on it. So it makes sense to just leave it out right now, to me.
Is the rest of the board in agreement with that?
I think I agree with Wes, and I think with Babette. I don't see a reason to have a definition that's not used anywhere in the code. So I would take it out now, and then if we decide to have a historic district, put it back in with that code.
Babette? Any comment?
Yeah, no, that sounds plausible to me. I just hope we don't lose sight of getting an historic district eventually.
Understood. Yeah, that's kind of been my goal here, is let's not just give it all up because maybe we just might follow through with that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to have to totally reinvent the wheel.
Right. And the other definition, I don't know if you want to go on to this yet, but is business district. Is that, Wes, is that defined in 170?
So I'm not sure how I could look in 170, but there are clear and distinct parameters for the different business districts, right? Because we created a couple of new ones, or we redefined them, right? Because you've got the Village Center Business District, and then the Gateway Corridor Business District, and then the Southside Business District. And each one of those is precisely articulated in chapter 170.
Yeah, I would say as long as it is pretty clearly spelled out in 170. I'm looking at 170 right now.
It's not in the definitions section.
Okay.
But where we talk about, I wish I had my table of contents readily available here, but where the code outlines each of the zoning districts, or the establishment of districts, section 170-4, districts enumerated. You've got the Southside Business District, the Gateway Corridor Business District, and Village Center Business District.
Yeah.
And then R4.
But in 170, when it talks about the districts, under Gateway Business District, it refers you to chapter 50.
Oh, does it?
Uh-huh. That's
What
under
what
definition.
paragraph? Can you tell me what paragraph that is?
It's part of the definitions.
Oh, it's in the definitions.
Yeah, it is. It's page 4. If you look at fence, front yard, and then it says gas station, and then Gateway Business District.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's defined, it says it's defined in chapter 50. So you might want to move that definition over.
Well, that's an oversight that should have come out when we redesignated them in 170-4.
All right. Oh, wait, all right. So they are designated then later in there, okay.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah.
Because I don't see the Village Center Business District in the definitions.
It was just that one. but maybe it's
Yeah,
because
or the
that was-
South Side.
Maybe it's because that was part of 50 originally, so they didn't.
You know, I wonder if E-Code 360, maybe because there was previously a definition for business district before Labella did our work, maybe they changed, the term to Gateway Business District and then just referenced an old put an old reference in to chapter 50, but, okay, yeah, we should clean that up.
Take that out.
So the proposal is to take it out of the definitions in 170. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah, I suppose I don't think we have any other definitions for the other zoning districts
Right.
in
Not
the
in-
village.
not
I
in the
think this is the
definitions.
only instance. And I guess if you wanted to keep, I would propose to take it out, Gateway Business District. Or if you were going to leave it in, I would somehow change the code reference to whatever the section is, 170 XYZ, just refer somebody to that. But I don't think there's a need for a definition for it.
Okay, because they clearly are enumerated in
Yeah.
170-4.
Right.
Okay. Anything else we need to discuss? Anybody?
Babette, did we address your comments so far?
Yeah, you did. The only
Okay.
one I wanted to, that I just remembered was, the appeals. Were we just going to let the appeal go to, I forgot, the State Supreme Court, Article 78? If anybody had a problem with an outcome of the planning board?
I think that's appropriate. And it may be the only thing we can do, frankly, but I think it's very appropriate to have that be in Article 78. I
So
don't think we want to add the step of saying, well, if you're not happy with this board, then you can go to another board. You got to take additional administrative steps before you can ever get out of the village and challenge it in your court. I don't think that's appropriate.
Sounds fine.
Hoping not to just sound like I'm trying to escape a responsibility, but I agree with Reed because the village board is a legislative board, but not an appeals board. Not a judicial board. Would you agree with that, Reed?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think we want to bounce it over to the, Board of Appeals or anybody else. I think it's best if it's just, the decision-making board in the village is whatever the board we pick, and really in this case we don't have any choice. It's the planning board. And if a citizen feels aggrieved by that, then they go to the Supreme Court. That's, I think, an appropriate way to go.
Thanks for that clarification. So, anybody else have any other questions or comments? And I think, as I said last meeting, I'm not, me personally, as a board member, I'm not in a hurry to, hold a public hearing and get this done. I'd like to take our time with it a little bit here. If Wes is going to provide this document for us, I think it will be very helpful and give us one last look at the changes that are proposed and make it easier for us to, say yay or nay in our own minds, each individual board member. And then after the first of the year, we could, if we're good with everything, we could schedule a public hearing and so for that. The other thing about it is, even though I know that the public generally doesn't come to public hearings unless it's a tax related issue or something like that, I do want to make sure that, they get a chance to speak on it if they have any comments on it. And that includes Babette and anybody else who's not a village board member. Even though Babette's not a village resident, she certainly.
I'm
is-
the village historian though.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And I'm not going to dispute that. So if everybody's agreeable to that, let's let Wes create that document for us and we go from there. Everybody okay with that?
I agree. I think it'd be helpful.
Mhm.
All right, I'll work on getting a document prepared and I can get it to Pam for distribution.
Okay, thank you very much, Wes. Thanks, Babette, for your comments.
I have another question about the historic districts, if I could.
Sure.
The board members got my email and the attachments about what an historic district is and the inventory of the historic resources? No?
Yep.
Carol, you didn't?
Yes.
Yes.
Did I miss
Carol
it?
did.
Was it with something else? Did I miss it again?
It was, I sent it on Tuesday, November 24th. If you didn't get it, I will resend it to you.
Okay, if you could please, didn't see it.
But did anybody have any questions? Or do you want me to do anything else, or are we just gonna sit on this for a while?
At this point, I haven't focused myself on that part of what we're doing,
Okay,
but I certainly, I do want to take a look at it. And I remember the inventory that was done and so forth. And if we each take some time to look at it and we get a better idea of what's entailed in creating a district, then maybe we can speak a little more, intelligently about it as a board.
and one of the things I'd like the board to discuss is, and I don't know how to go about doing this except to ask you and then you tell me what I need to do, is to spend the money to get Labella to do a map that shows the high, the middle, and the low, or just the high and the middle historically significant properties.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Babette, how did you come up with the rating of high, medium, and low on the specific properties? Because I did go over the list.
I did not do that. It was done objectively by the Landmark Society and Cynthia Hauk from the Landmark Society. I had tried to do it and I couldn't be objective.
So educate me on what the Landmark Society is specifically. And let me tell you where I'm going with this. I like you, I've been here a long time and I've got some frames of reference. So the house I grew up in is rated medium. There is nothing historic about the house I grew up in, not a thing.
Well, it can be subjective as well, but I'm just going by what Cynthia Hauk, and I think maybe a workshop in the future with Cynthia might be a good idea to educate all of us.
Okay. Because I am for this, but in my humble opinion, it needs to be realistic with perspective. So, I think there's some real history in this village that should be preserved, but probably a much lower percentage than, in a proportion of numbers of properties that are realistic. So
Okay.
when I see mediums on that list of houses I've spent extensive time in, not just mine, but friends of mine too, and I know they're not mediums. So.
Okay.
Well, Babette, I think your idea about bringing Cynthia into a meeting would be good. I mean, it's been a long time since she did that review, and I can't even remember the date, but it's several years.
Right. But we could do that into the spring or summer, after things kind of calm down a bit.
Yeah. I think that's a sensible approach.
I apologize if I missed it, but I didn't see it. So if you could, somebody could forward a copy of that to me.
I will send it to both you and Carol, Reed. I did not send it to you. I apologize, Reed.
Oh, no apology necessary. I appreciate it. Thanks.
He wants to know if his office is on the list.
I guarantee it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it, Babette. And Mike, good point about it. And I think the review would probably answer some of those questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Babette. Okay, are we set then to move on to the clerk's report here?
I'm going to be leaving.
Bye-bye, Babette.
Thank
Bye,
Bye.
Babette.
I bet. Thank you.
you.
You're welcome.
Pam, are you ready for the clerk's report?
Yep. So I have a resolution to accept the meeting minutes for our November 16th meeting.
I'll
I'll
make
make
the
a
motion.
motion.
Motion by Mike, second by Carol. Any comments or questions about the minutes from November 16th? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
Yeah, got it.
opposed? None.
And I've got a resolution to accept the abstract number 13.
Is there a
I'll
motion?
make the motion.
Motion by Bob. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Michelle. Discussion? Bob, thanks for your question to the abstract that you sent to Diane.
I think I asked the same question a quarter ago and got the same answer, but thank you.
No, I appreciate it because she explained it very well.
She did.
It was a little confusing to me as well. Any other comments or questions on the abstract? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
And that's all I have.
Thanks, Pam. Director of Public Works, Mr. Turner.
Just a few things. I don't know if you guys heard, a couple weeks ago, we had a water main break up at school. Fixed it at night because they wanted to have school the next day. And we, in the agreement I have with the school, we billed them, so we should be seeking payment there from them pretty soon. We're gonna probably do one more round of brush just because everybody brought it out with that wind. Leads are done. The leafers are stored already. I started my budget. I know that some of you might have got the list today about the meeting minutes. Also, there was a light pole hit right across from, I don't know what's going on down there, Mike, but right across from Van Bortles, another one got tagged out. So the insurance company paid us today for that.
Nice.
We didn't catch the driver on this one though. That's all I have. It's pretty quiet.
Thanks, JT. Before I let them go, I want to thank them. They had, their first salt run or two here in the last few days. And over the weekend, we had that Victor Central School parade, car parade that the seniors were involved in. And Craig Coeen kind of bailed me out by coming up to Church Street and West Parkway and setting up barriers for me and then manning that spot while the parade was able to get into Quail Ridge and out of there. That was really helpful. Kind of called them on a spur of the moment thing. And Jeff King was involved too, because John was actually kind of busy with some personal stuff. So Once again, the village crew, great job.
JT, is there anything, I gotta think of a nice way to say it. What needs to be voted on tomorrow night at the fire district?
There is one guy that he could use some help, Michael Keys. So that's all we're going up for right now.
Okay,
And there is a treasurer's position, but no one put their ballot in for it. So that doesn't mean a write-in can't happen.
got it.
But that's
And I don't
still,
know, I could bring these guys up to speed on the fire department. I mean, if they want to hear it, it's up to you guys. So Sean McAdoo, some of you guys know, he got appointed as deputy treasurer. He resigned at the town hall as code enforcement. It took on a full position there.
and the town took him back as a part-time code enforcement officer.
Yeah, and it's to do with litigation that they are currently in the courts with and commercial code review. Or not code review, commercial building permit review.
So tomorrow night's election, as Mike was saying, so, but Sean's position has to be, he has to be elected, is that correct?
He is elected right now.
Oh, he's serving,
No, not even that. We didn't, so we couldn't because we were too late when the former treasurer resigned. We're too late to make that motion. There's timetables that we're supposed to follow. So we had to put him on, we had to put that position on the ballot. You can run for treasurer.
so is his position on the ballot then?
No, not as deputy.
Okay, okay.
So,
it's just-
John, if I understood it then, so Sean McAdoo is now a appointed paid employee.
Yep,
And so, and part of his duties is, I guess we could call it accounting,
yes,
but you would still have a treasurer that would act more like a figurehead.
yes,
Because otherwise, what are you paying McAdoo to do?
right,
Okay, makes sense.
yeah.
Makes
Well,
sense. It's a totally thankless job. Makes sense.
He's got more duties than just, he's taking care of all the books now because we needed somebody
Right.
when our treasurer resigned. But he's doing a lot of administration stuff for the chief. He's putting the budget together. He's doing the bills. He's, everything.
Oh, yeah.
Basically what everything Diane does.
Your boys are getting ready to run out right now.
Are they?
Yep.
Whistle.
Thanks, JT. Trustee reports tonight, anybody?
Nothing for me.
Nothing for Bob? Michelle or Carol?
URA is just having a special meeting Wednesday night to approve payment of a facade project.
Hey, Michelle,
Yeah,
I didn't see it. I emailed Gene Pratt. Do they have a meeting Monday night?
we do. I think so, yes.
Is it gonna be?
We get the email late though.
Is it
It'll be
Zoom
Zoom.
or? It is?
Zoom. Yep.
Okay.
Do you want me to forward it to you if we get one?
Yeah, it's only because they need to come up with something. I told Gene to talk about the budget because I'm trying to put my numbers together before the first of the year.
Okay.
And if I should probably be involved in that meeting.
Okay. Yeah, they send it late, so I'll forward it to you once I get it.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
And you're speaking about this
what's that?
Monday night coming up, the 14th?
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
Yep. December 14th. And then since we last met, I had library board. A lot of it was budget discussions because they're in the midst of preparing their budget and things like that. So
That, anything else, Michelle?
I think they're looking at 2 sites, but I don't know those 2 sites. So. I'll hush hush.
Okay. But they are in the village.
They are
Correct.
in the village.
They are in the village. That we can say, right, Bob?
We can say that.
Tim told me that I was talking to him.
Okay, so Mike, could you update the board on our ambulance meeting?
Sure. So Gary and I, along with our respective counterparts from the town of Farmington and the town of Victor, met with Jim Hood, the president of the Victor Farmington Volunteer Ambulance Corps. One of the suggestions that came out of the meeting was I told them to change their name since they're not the volunteer force anymore that they had. So this was actually our second meeting, a follow-up from 2019. And the issue is the ambulance can't really provide for itself financially anymore, as the demographics of Victor Farmington have changed, as well as the healthcare billing system. So when it started, you have to remember, it truly was a volunteer ambulance corps. You know, the volunteers on the rigs, volunteers administratively. And now, I think they said they only have like 8 volunteers and 5 of them are board members. You know, the rest of everybody else is a paid, you know, professional, a mixture of EMTs and paramedics. And so they get minimal money from the town and from the towns of Farmington. Well, they get nothing from the village, you know, other than what comes out of the town A fund, but it's less than $50,000 a year is paid between the town of Victor and the town of Farmington. And so they get their billing, they get their income from billing patients who have been transported. And ambulance billing is, it's quirky. I don't want to say it's complex, but it's certainly quirky. You know, I've dealt with that in my other career. But if you don't transport somebody, you don't get paid. So let's say they get called to the mall for somebody choking. You know, when they get there, the person's fine. They don't get paid for that. And then what could have happened is now another call comes in on the Farmington side that they couldn't get to, and an ambulance from Clifton Springs or Manchester comes, takes that person to the hospital and gets paid. So statistically, they make 78% of all the calls in their district with 1 crew. And they make about 92 to 94% of all their calls in their district with 2 crews. And they typically run 2 crews during the day and 1 crew at night. But they want to get to 3 crews, which is, that's kind of like a gray area. 3 crews will only push them to 98%. So you get quite a jump from 1 crew to 2 crew, from that 78% to that low 90%. But then your jumps start to go down on that 3rd crew. But regardless, they don't have the money. And then because they only bill, and even though we started this in 2019, their call volume in 2020 is down 8%. So directly proportional, that would equal their incomes down somewhere around 8%. And Jim was frightfully honest that if they had not gotten the PPP loan, they would not be answering calls. So what they want in their perfect world, what they want to do is they want to create, it's similar to the library function, but they want to create a taxing line items for the town and for both towns. So they're not going to be their own entity. And the reason they can't be their own entity, like the fire department, is then they cannot bill. So if they were to become their own entity and tax us, then they couldn't bill us. And you're saying to yourself, well, why would you want to bill? Well, because for towns like Victor and Farmington, we have a lot of transient people, you know, particularly during the day between the Eastview Mall and the Racino. So if you can't bill and somebody from Rochester calls and you end up taking that person back up to Rochester to Strong, you're just eating it. So to me, it makes perfectly good sense that they need to be able to bill. because you can't turn people down and you can't just guarantee that when the call comes, it's going to be a Victor or Farmington resident. So how it would work is the towns would agree to, and what we kind of agreed to in theory without having full board approval that we would discuss at length was we would, the Village of Victor has to sign off on it also, even though we wouldn't have any taxes involved. So all the taxes for Victor would come out of the town fund since we're all Victor residents. But because the village is a municipality within the district that the ambulance serves, we have to agree to it also. So we become a non-taxing signee to any potential agreement moving forward. And, so you're saying, well, if the taxes are going to go up, why are they going to bill too? That's going to be the first, for the consumer, that's what they're thinking, right? So because the tax is relatively significant. I think we were talking 29 cents per thousand, which again, on an average house of 250,000 was roughly like $80, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when you add the 29 cents into the bottom line of your tax rate, you see your tax jump, somewhat significantly on the percentage side. I think most people who had a $250,000 home wouldn't argue with $80 for the ambulance, per year. But the tax is going to be, the way that it's going to be presented or marketed or sold, whatever word you want to put on it, is the tax is to have the ambulance there and ready. So everybody's going to pay it because in theory, you may need it someday. So all the taxable residences and businesses in the village and in the towns of Farmington and Victor are going to pay this tax, on this property tax. But if you call them, you're going to receive a bill because that was a specific service they provided to you. But by doing this, their average bill, which now is like $3,400, they can bring down to 2012, 2014 rates, which is around $1,600 to $1,800. And then Medicare and Medicaid have their own separate billing structures, which have no flexibility. And, we do have an aging population in both towns, in addition to the new populations that have moved in. So, and if you think about it, those are often calls, right? Like if you get the calls on the fire department, you'll see they go to 4 Frameark often. 4 Frameark is the subsidized senior living behind the post office. So in a nutshell, the ambulance isn't going to be able to survive without taxing and billing. There's some debate there again, whether it's 2 crews or 3 crews, that I think that's up to the ambulance and the final taxing authorities of how much they want to throw at it. Again, you hate to say it, right? Because you're juggling people's lives, but what's the difference between 94 and 98% across the population? That becomes the difference. So there's still a lot of work to be done on it. A lot of this was really the second phase of the initial drawing board of talking about it. But just so you know and can be aware, because it's gonna come out quick when it does, because social media tends to drive things that involve money. It can often be driven negatively. And there were some things on social media last week here in Victor about the library and the school. And so, it's going to happen, but I think the majority of residences, at least at that 94%, that 2 crew level, want to know they can call the ambulance for what I consider to be a realistic tax on their property, and then they're going to have to pay for it when they need the specific service.
Thanks, Mike. I would add just a couple of things. Another one of the reasons that I think costs are what they are for Victor Farmington Ambulance, as Jim Hood described, is the geographic area that they have to cover is huge. And most ambulance services are in a more confined geographic area than, the total town boundaries of Victor and Farmington. For instance, up in Monroe County, if you call an ambulance, they're 10 minutes usually away from Strong Memorial or Rochester General Hospital. Out here, they have to transport, a long ways to get somebody to a hospital, either to Canandaigua or to Rochester. So I think that was also part of, the struggle they have with covering costs and why they need more crews and so forth, because of the time involved in these calls. And the other thing, to Mike's point, is actually Supervisor Marin made it right away very clear, you know, the budgets for the town of Farmington, the town of Victor are already set for 2021. So this isn't going to happen in 2021. It's going to be, you know, the following year, 2022. But like Mike said, when it does, it's going to come rolling out, and want to make sure everybody's got an idea of what's going on ahead of time. So it was a good meeting, and a lot was discussed, and I think some understandings between the municipalities and the ambulance corps were, you know, it was a good meeting. And then back to the village's contribution, your deputy mayor made it pretty clear at the meeting that don't say we're not contributing because we pay town taxes just like you do. He was speaking to the deputy supervisor at the time. So I think they all understand that. So thanks, Mike. Anything else? Anything zoning going on or anything like that?
Nope.
Great. Okay, for myself, I'll try to get through this fairly quickly. CCA update. As you know, the letter came out and came out right before Thanksgiving, I think. And I don't know if I mentioned this last meeting or not, but if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. But I know that Pam and Diane took some calls from some residents who weren't happy about it. And I got one call from a prominent resident who wasn't happy about it. I think his theme was, why do I have to opt out of something? In other words, why are you automatically enrolling me in something? And I understand how that might make somebody feel. And I just told him that, you know, it's up to you. You certainly don't have to. He says, I'm going to opt out. And I said, well, you have every right to do that, but I'd like to see it reconsider, but you know, you do what you have to do. I think maybe as time goes on, hopefully this program will be successful and maybe people will reconsider who do opt out. And it is, Sue Hughes Smith had a pretty good, what do I want to say, description of why it's an opt-out program. And I'll bring that up in a second, but Sue and I went to the town actually on, I can't remember what day it was last week, and met with Barb Cole, because the town is considering coming on board with the CCA program. So that was a good meeting. It was a productive meeting. And as you might imagine, Barb's head was kind of swimming when it was over, but Sue was trying to nurse her along just like she did us and provide the information in bits and pieces when the town's ready to take it. And I'm hopeful that they will maybe come on board with the program, and the more the merrier, and the better the rate we'll get the next time we go out to bid. So Sue's explanation, why is it an opt-out, was they pretty much felt they had to set it up that way, because if you set it up from the beginning as an opt-in, how are you going to get people to do it? People are so hesitant. People are so skeptical. I mean, even ourselves, perhaps, would have been more so than we were. So by making it an opt-out, hopefully we'll have more people who will stay with the program, and it won't be as difficult to get the numbers that we need to make the program successful. So I thought that was a pretty honest answer she gave to Barb Cole. And then on the 3rd of December, which was last, I don't know what, Thursday, I guess it was, there was our last or third Zoom meeting for public input. I sat in on that as best I could. I did get a phone call in the middle of that from the sheriff's office regarding the upcoming parade, so I missed a little bit of it, but there were 7 participants this time, which is probably 7 times what there were the first time. So, and there were some good questions that were being asked. So, maybe we're gaining a little bit of recognition with the public. I hope so for their benefit as well as the program's benefit. Then tomorrow I'll be on WXXI with Sue for the Connections program that Evan Dawson does, just to talk about the CCA. That's at 1 p.m. or thereabouts tomorrow. It's just a phone call meeting, not a Zoom. Next thing I want to briefly mention is Parks and Rec Master Plan and Harlan Fisher Park. I went to the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. I went to, actually Zoomed to it. And this was last Tuesday. And they spoke about the Parks and Rec Master Plan and trying to move forward with some things that the town has committed to. So as you know, the rec department's been pretty much decimated, but the Parks Department is intact. And they're still trying to do some things with parks, because you can do things outdoors. So in the master plan, one of the things that was called out, I don't know if you would remember it, any of you, but is a dog park. It was among the top 5 priorities in the plan, actually, that residents expressed interest. And there's a couple of sites that they're looking at, and one of them is Harlan Fisher Park. And the other is the park out in Duck Hollow. I can't remember the name of their park there. So they're trying to, weigh both options. So obviously, I think they're leaning towards Harlan Fisher. And they want to know, will the village have any skin in the game for a dog park there? So I discussed briefly with them the agreement that we have with the town of Victor, and they take care of Victor Municipal Park, and they used to take care of Mead Square. John and his crew does now, but and actually they've been taking care of Harlan Fisher Park too, even though we don't have that as officially part of that agreement. Reed and I went over that agreement. Reed changed some language and stuff, but we as a board have not officially changed the agreement. But I think there's a premise there that, we expect the town of Victor to take care of that park for us as well. Because I don't see us having our own park force anytime soon. So I bring up the dog park issue because I just want you to keep it in your mind as a possibility, and I'm open to your comments, questions, or whatever. And I'm just kind of throwing it out there initially tonight. And at some point, probably after the first of the year, maybe even a little later than that, we could bring in folks from the Citizens Advisory Committee to talk about it more specifically than I can with you. And I suggested to them, make sure you've done your research with Canandaigua and some of these other communities that have them. And, I think they have done that. So, I'll just let you know that in that initial discussion, I think my discussion with them was that, we have some money in the Parks Trust Fund, if you will. The fee that's charged to new home construction. And I think we have probably had 3 maybe homes that have been constructed since that fee was established or changed and included in the village. So we do have a little bit of money there that we could use to help with the costs of this dog park project if it comes to fruition. And you should know that the town has committed quite a bit of money for engineering feasibility on this dog park project. So they want to go forward with it, but they want to know the village is on board with it, obviously. And the other thing, John Turner, hope you don't get mad at me, but I said, you know, in-kind services may be a way we can contribute as well, since it is our park. It
I'll
is
make you a deal,
okay,
okay? I'll do in-kind services if you don't do a feasible study on it.
if you don't do a feasibility study, well, that sounds like a deal. We may have to talk to the town about that.
No, I know, but I think sometimes these studies waste more money than putting production in, you know, my personal opinion.
I do understand where you're coming from, John. So anyways, it was just that initial discussion. I just want you to know that that's going on in the background. And if you have comments, thoughts along the way, I'm happy to listen. And you certainly could share them with Brian and the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee directly if you chose to do that as well. But since I am the liaison to them, I wanted you to be aware of the discussion we had. And they're not going to be doing anything right away because of the town's 90-day moratorium on spending. So in their new budget year, they're not doing much of anything until April of 2021. Okay, moving on from that, a little bit of discussion here about the code enforcement position that we've been talking about. So I told you last time, we've been back and forth with the county on a job description, on the duties and all those kinds of documents that they require from us to create in order to create the position. I think we're closing in on it now. There was a little bit of discussion about whether it was going to be a code enforcement position or a building inspector position. Diane did a little research on the New York State website, and I had asked the county to do a little research. And the end result of that is that it will be a code enforcement position. And we're in the process of, and it would be the way we proposed it would be a part-time position. And we're in the process of creating John Turner was working on it today, a duty statement for the part-time public works maintenance assistant position. And if you remember, we're in hopes of hiring somebody for the two positions, one person for the two positions. The county was adamant. They wanted a clear description of what we expected in that second position. So again, Diane and JT have been working on that, and I think it's just about ready to go. I just have to sign it. The biggest change to that position, I think, was John Turner adding the statement that it assists the Director of Public Works with stormwater management duties, including inspections, attending and reporting on meetings, mapping and reporting. So that's pretty good description of something to assist him with. He's still going to be the manager in the process, because they were pretty clear that if the person for this position was going to do management work, that would perhaps change the title. So I think the way John's described it here, that should be good when we send this to the county, and hopefully we can get this to them and get it back, and it'll be posted on the county website very shortly after that. And if anybody knows of interested parties, keep us informed. JT, you have anything to add to that?
No, I think it's pretty good, Gary. Once we get moving on it and everything.
And I do want to follow through. I said I would, and I haven't yet, but I want to follow through with Kim Kinsella in the building department over at Town Hall and find out just how they view the end of the contract, and whether or not, if we don't have somebody in this position right away, if there's any leeway with them helping us out until we get somebody in this position. So I will follow up with her. And Supervisor Marin alluded, to the fact that, yeah, we'll try to help you out, but he didn't commit to that because he needed to talk to Kim, who really is the person who runs that department. So that's about it for me tonight. Pam, am I missing anything?
I don't think so.
Anything from Reed?
And Reed, anything? Oh, I should just quickly mention back to the ambulance meeting that the documentation they provided us was like a template for an agreement, as well as some comments from the town attorneys from both the town of Victor and the town of Farmington. So I had Pam faxed all that stuff over to Reed, and he has it to look at, because even though we're not direct, if you want to call it, contributors, we do have to sign off on it. So I want Reed to take a look at the comments from the attorneys and the agreement itself and make sure he's good with that. And I told him there's no big hurry because I don't think it's going to be acted upon anytime soon, right, Mike? Was that your impression?
Yeah, I think everybody said numbers in the spring, to work into the next budgets and.
Yeah. So as it draws closer to July or June or July, then that's where the rubber meets the road financially for those two towns. So that's it. Reed, anything else that you might have tonight?
I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Anybody else, any further business? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike,
I'll second.
second by Carol, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you all. And
All right. Good night.
everybody have a good night.
Night all.
Don't forget to stop in and get your poinsettias and other gifts, because if you leave it up to me to take care of them, they'll be dead by the end of the week.
Okay. Thanks, Pam.
Too.
And Gary, Gene Pratt stopped in today and he dropped off some paperwork for you to sign tomorrow. I told him you'd be in here at 1 tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. All righty.